welcome to Do You Know How Great You Are? Today we are going to help you not just understand any qualifications that you might have taken in the past, but we're going to help you understand what your skills and experience actually mean in terms of your qualifications. So, my name is Nicola Smith and I am the Employer Support Lead at the SCQF Partnership. And I also get involved in all sorts of really interesting projects that are happening around Scotland's National Qualifications Framework. And part of that work is helping people understand not just what their qualifications mean, but also the wealth of skills and experience that people might have, not just from their working lives, but also the things that you do in your spare time, any volunteering, any other things that you do outside of work as well. So, just to start off, this is one of my favourite little cartoons, and it describes why the SCQF, the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework, came into being. So this shows the problems that we have sometimes with the exam system that we have in not just our country, but worldwide, where that academic route is often seen as the best. Our hires, now moving on to university, is seen as what we should do. And to some people, the vocational, the skills-based qualifications have in the past seemed less important. When we created the Scottish Credit and Qualification Framework, we wanted to tackle that idea. We wanted to let people see the full range of qualifications that we're doing in Scotland and be able to compare them to each other and see how important all qualifications are and be able to understand them in relation to each other. So the bird and the monkey in this picture are going to be very advantaged because they are absolutely suited to this type of exam, climbing that tree. That poor fish and that poor seal are not going to have a chance. We want to make sure that everybody has access to the type of qualifications that suit their skills, their way of working, their way of learning, and the types of assessment that make sense for what we are looking for. So, way back in 2001, 22 years ago, people from across education in Scotland, in schools, colleges, universities, the workplace, and also community learning got together and said, we need a framework that brings together all of these amazing qualifications we're doing in the one place. And we want people to be able to understand and compare them to each other. And from that, the SCQF was born. And what this does is we have one set of underlying benchmarks that tells you what a learner has to do to be able to gain a qualification at each of the different levels. So what that allows us to do is it allows us to look at any type of subject from art to zoology and be able to compare them, even if they're very, very different types of subjects. For example, this is what allows you to see what a higher art and a higher physics are the same level of difficulty. Two very different subjects, two very different types of skills, but they are the same level of difficulty. So talking about hires, I will help you understand the SCQF by starting off at SCQF level 6, which is where we find a hire. So hires have not changed their names since 1880 something, and it's a very long time, so we all know what a hire is. And a hire sits at SCQF level 6. However, also at SCQF level 6, we have a range of other qualifications. If we look across, we have SVQs at SCQF level 6, modern or foundation apprenticeships at SCQF level 6, and a whole range of other qualifications that we'll look at in a wee minute. So we know that no matter what type of assessment, what type of learning, what type of skill, anything at that level is the same level of difficulty and should be regarded in the same esteem. So my favourite statistic about the SCQF, that all the different qualifications we have at SCQF level 6, only 7% of them are hires. So that shows you just the range of different qualifications we have out there. Now, the reason we wanted to bring everything all together was to be able to compare and understand them compared to each other, but that also allows us to move at different points in our life through the different types of qualifications. We might leave school and go into the world of work. Then we might pick up SVQs or an apprenticeship. We might move into college, do a higher national diploma. We might then move into university and start a degree course. Well, not start a degree course, we'd be able to get into third year or an upper year. Because we can compare qualifications, it allows us to have anything that we've done in the past understood by different learning providers. So it's really important that it provides those different pathways for us to go down no matter where we are in life. We sometimes refer to it as the lifelong learning framework because it's something that we can dip into at different parts of our life, whether we want to retrain and do something different job-wise, whether we want to progress within our job role and find the right type of learning for us. The SCQF brings all of those together and it helps you understand what type of qualifications or courses you might want to go on if you want to further your learning in different parts of your life. So we've had people doing degrees courses in their 90s. You're never ever too old to learn. So let's familiarise ourselves with the framework a little bit more. So level 6 is where you find your higher. Level 7 is where you'd find advanced higher if you stay on at school. If you're as old as me, that is Certificate of 6th Year Studies, CSYS. Also at level 7, we find an HNC, that first year at college, or your first year at university as well. And that is what allows us to move in between these different pathways at different times in our lives. Now, I'm going to follow up the academic route now, not because it's any better than any of the others, but because it's the one that we all know and recognise, and that's the only reason. So, level 8 is where we'd find our HND, our second year at college, or our second year at university. Level 9 is where we would find an ordinary degree. Level 10, an honours degree. Level 11, a master's degree. And up to level 12, which is our top level, which is a doctorate, a PhD. Now, I'm going to look down the levels in a couple of slides' time when we also look back in time. So because we have this one set of benchmarks that underpins all our qualifications, it means that it's not just these mainstream qualifications that we have in the SCQF, but we also have a range of other qualifications that are being done in the workplace, in the community, or by private learning providers. So at any given time, we've got about 10,500 qualifications on the framework. About 2,500 are those SQA qualifications that you do in schools and colleges and in workplaces as well. Also, about 1,000 of them are these other qualifications that are done in the workplace, that are done in the community as well, or private learning providers. So apologies for this slide. I don't know why this graphic's always been a little bit fuzzy, but you'll see on here that we have right up there at level 11, you've got glaucoma management from NHS Education for Scotland. There's another one there sitting at level 6, the same level as a higher, the NHS Education for Scotland, Caring for Smiles. These are some things that you may have done yourself. And NEST have a whole range of different qualifications on the framework. In fact, you have so many qualifications that we are going to be soon giving you the power to put your own qualifications on the framework. We'll be checking up to make sure that they come up to the right standard, but you will be able to, what we call credit rate, and put your own qualifications on the framework. Now, NEST is not alone. There are a range of other people that can do that. We have Scottish Police College, we have Scottish Fire and Rescue. They have the ability to put their programmes up on the framework. And any other workplace can also have theirs put up. They go and talk to a college or a university or SQA, and they will help them have their qualifications placed on the framework. So, for example, Historic Environment Scotland have a qualification up there at level 11, which is the same level as a master's degree. And they have quite a few qualifications on the framework because they teach skills that have all but died out. They're keeping alive some of those traditional skills in order to repair and manage our historic environment. So, whole range of really interesting things that nobody else in the country is teaching. It's not just workplaces. Over on the left-hand side, we have a range of different things being done in the community. So we have youth work courses, we have adult learning courses, people coming back into the workplace, doing employability courses, all sorts of different things here. One thing that's really interesting is the things that our young people are now able to do at school is changing significantly as well. So you'll notice some of these qualifications here. This one here is the same level of difficulty as a higher, and it takes the same amount of time to do as a higher. It's exactly equivalent, but it's from an external learning provider who comes into schools, and it's being taken up by a lot of schools now. So it's a qualification that's directly equivalent to higher, but is building some really useful skills. Skills-based, it's continually assessed. And we're seeing all sorts of different qualifications now popping up onto the framework. We've got a series of things on social media and blogs on our website just looking at some of these amazing different qualifications that are coming up. If you've got young people at school in your family, it's worth going onto our YouTube channel and having a little look at some of the things that our SCQF School Ambassador schools are doing. There's a whole range of really interesting things. Schools are now broadening out their curriculum, and we're training young people in senior phase to educate their peers and their parents all about the SCQF and the different pathways that are available to you depending on what you're good at, what your particular skills and interests are in life. So, I said that we would look back in time and also look down the framework to help you understand the lower levels, the levels coming down from level 6. So we've got our good old higher here that hasn't changed its name for a long time. Going up from that, I mentioned that if you were as old as me, you know this certificate of 6-year studies that's at level 7 as well. That's now become an advanced higher. Now, coming down, we'll ignore these blue ones for a minute. I'll tell you about those in a little minute. But coming down to level 5, SCQF level 5, the main qualification that's done in schools now is called a National 5 or a Nat 5 for short. And the National 5 is called that because it sits at SCQF level 5. So we're getting some nice joined up thinking here now. I forgot to mention earlier, all the SVQs that are now being done in Scotland also must have an SCQF level in their title to make sure that people understand it. Apprenticeships also have an SCQF level in their title. If you're not sure about any qualifications you've done in the past, you can have a look at your certificates and it will tell you the SCQF level on your certificate. So, National 5 is equivalent to a standard grade credit, which is also equivalent to a good pass at O grade, one of those upper passes at O grade. And I am right on that wee corner. I've got a bit of a mixture of both. A National 4 is at SCQF level 4. It's equivalent to a standard grade general or a lower pass at O grade. And National 3 would be equivalent to a standard grade foundation. Now, these lower levels, the 1 and the 2, in the 2000s, we brought in these access courses to allow people who, they're quite often done by people with particular learning difficulties, just to show exactly what they are able to do. It's really important that people at all stages can show employers what they're capable of doing and also just prove to themselves what you're capable of doing. So the reason that these were all brought in was to provide people with learning at the right level for them at the right times in their lives. So these intermediate ones here, they came in because it was recognised you could not go from a foundation up to a higher, that's too high a jump. So they brought in intermediate steps to allow people to access learning at the right level at the right times in their lives. And this was the start of beginning to bring in these different levels. So the SCQF is a framework that tries to make sure that everyone can access the right type of learning at the right times during their lives at the right level, and it can be understood and compared with anything else that they've done in the past. Now, I mentioned that we will talk about these blue ones in a little minute, so we'll talk about them now. As I mentioned, what people are doing in schools nowadays, what our young people are doing, has changed significantly. And if you have young people yourselves, you'll have noticed that there are far more options now in schools, and that's only going to increase over the next 5-10 years. This is a fantastic thing. In the past, we've concentrated on that academic path. Suits about 30% of our learners. That's not good enough. We need to be providing right types of qualification for everybody. So this is where we're bringing in things like foundation apprenticeships. Those are done with school-college partnerships, so young people in their senior phase can go out for an afternoon or a morning or a whole day as part of their curriculum. They go to the college and they have time working on either foundation apprenticeships or also national certificates. What this does is it opens up a range of different types of subject areas that there's no way that it could be offered in schools, and it lets them stick their toe in their water and see if they like those particular things whilst remaining in the safety of the school environment. We also have skills for work qualifications at levels 3 to 6, and national progression awards that go from 2 to 6. National progression awards are skills-based, they are subject-specific. There's all sorts of interesting things you can do. My particular favourite one is beekeeping. I'm quite fancy managing to do somewhere. I'll need to find where I can learn a National Progression Award in beekeeping. But there's all sorts of different subject areas. And that just allows schools to have curriculums that actually match their local community as well. We're finding schools by the sea are doing a lot of marine skills. We're finding rural schools are doing rural skills. Inner city schools are doing quite often working quite a lot in construction and all sorts of different things. Types of jobs that local people in those areas would be likely to go into. For those of you who did your learning outside of Scotland, this is a really useful little graphic that shows you how you compare your qualifications to those in the rest of the UK or the Republic of Ireland. So the blue column here is the SCQF, and on here you'll see all the different levels. Now in a minute I'm going to show you a tool that's on our website, and it has links to all of these, so don't worry if you can't see this tiny writing. You'll be able to go onto the web page and zoom in a little bit further. So this is the SCQF over on the right hand side in blue. The Republic of Ireland has everything all in the framework as we do, and that's here in green, and that allows them to do similar things to what we do here. The situation in England, Wales and Northern Ireland is slightly more complicated. They have about 5 or 6 different qualification frameworks, but they do notionally line up with each other. And most of these qualifications you will find on the yellow here, the RQF. So this tells us that at level 1, maps across to our SCQF level 4, that's where you would find lower passes at GCSE. And that's what we would expect. GCSE is very much like our old O grade. So lower passes are at SCQF 4 and upper passes at GCSE are at SCQF 5. Your AS and A levels map across to a level 6, moving into a level 7 for those higher grades in those. Quite often you will find qualifications that are done in Scotland that just have a level on them. So if it doesn't say SCQF level and it just says level something, you'll probably find that on this yellow one, the RQF. And they come under this umbrella term of vocational, technical, professional qualifications. So for example, if you work in HR, the CIPD has qualifications at various levels, and their highest one they have is level 7, which maps across to SCQF 11, which is where you'd find a master's. So same level of difficulty as a master's. So you might come across some qualifications on this framework as well. So that just helps you understand where you are if you did your learning elsewhere in the UK or Ireland. Okay, so that helps you understand what the SCQF is and how different qualifications match up with different levels. What I want to have a chat with you about today is there'll be a lot of people out there, and a lot of you who've tuned in today, who maybe haven't done any qualifications for quite a long time, but you might have been in the workplace doing all sorts of different things. You might do all sorts of different things outside of work that all build up your skills and experience. And those skills and experience we can actually match to an SCQF level. And when we go through this process with people, people are usually amazed because they find out that they're not sitting at level 6 because the last thing they did was a hire. They're actually up at levels 8 or 9 because they have developed a wealth of experience throughout their working life or their activities outside of work. So what we have been able to do is we've been able to take those levels and the benchmarks that we use to put levels on qualifications, and we've turned them into something which tells you what somebody working would look like. What would you be able to do in the workplace if you had qualifications or experience at each of these levels? Now that's really useful for employers because we're trying to encourage employers to use SCQF levels in their recruitment instead of specific qualifications. Stop asking for degree or equivalent, because not everybody has the opportunity or the chance to do a degree in life, but you may have experience and skills that actually adds up to that level. So if you use SCQF levels rather than specific qualifications, then you are getting a much wider range of people who actually might have better skills. So if any of you know anyone working in HR, please pass on the word and they can become an SCQF inclusive recruiter. And we're working with NES and with NHS to try and help them change things over so that in the future you will be using SCQF levels rather than specific qualifications. But what does this mean for us? We have created a set of web pages which will let you know what SCQF level you are actually working at rather than what your qualifications suggest. So on this page, you'll find it on our website at support for individuals. Keep doing that. Know your level individuals. We're also putting a link in the chat for you as well, so you can come back and look at this. So the first question it asks is, what qualifications do you hold? If you're not sure what SCQF level that is, you can look at that old versus new diagram that I showed you, or qualifications can cross boundaries and work out what level your qualifications are at, the last ones that you did. If you're not sure, start at level 5 and go from there. So this is our framework. And if we click on the number at the side, level 5, tap to find out what skills and experience are likely required at level 5. And it takes you to a page which describes to you what somebody with qualifications or skills and experience at level 5 would be able to do. So first thing I do is look at this table. Now, not all of these different headings will be as important as others in your job role or in the things you do outside work. So if it's not important, you can put those ones aside and read the other ones, the ones that are important, and see if that describes you. You can then come down and look at the representative responsibilities, tasks and duties, knowledge and skills, and see if that describes you. Now, if it's been a while since you did qualifications, then what you'll find is you likely need to go to a higher level. So you come down and click on a higher level, and it'll take you to level 6. And you just do the same again, read through, decide if that suits you, if that describes you. And if you still think, nope, not sure, just keep going up until you find the one that describes you. If you think you found the one, check one up just in case. But just keep going up until you find that one that describes you the best. Now, this is useful for a few reasons. It's useful because, first of all, it's a great self-esteem booster. So often I've done this with people, and you can just see them thinking, wow, I thought I was only working down at level 6. I thought, or at higher's level, because they didn't know about the levels. And suddenly they think, wow, I'm working up at level 8. That's the same level as an HND. And it's a great self-esteem booster. But then you can start thinking, well, if I'm already working at level 8, and there's that job role that I thought I would never be able to do, it's sitting at a level 9. Okay, so what do I need to do to be able to then apply for that job role? And that allows you to then open a discussion with your manager. In fact, doing this whole process is a really useful thing to do as part of your yearly discussions about your performance and progression. I'm not sure what you call it in the NHS. Alison will be able to help you later on with that. But you can have those discussions with your manager. If you are a manager, you can have those discussions with the people who report to you and try and work out just what level. It's much easier to do it when you've got someone else who knows you well, and you can decide, work out which level you're actually working at. And then you'll be able to plan, what do I need to do to get to that next level and be able to apply for that promotion? Is it getting more experience in a particular area? Do I need to go on a training course? Do I need to get some on-the-job experience in something else, or some in-work training? And it just opens up a whole range of different possibilities for you. The other important thing is, if you know what level you're working at already, that allows you to find the right level of course for you if you want to do further training. If you're working up at level 8 or 9, but the last qualifications you did were at level 6, you don't want to be going down to level 6 to do training. You want training that's going to be at the right level to help stretch you, to help you learn and move up the levels. So really, really important and really, really useful. So this is the Know Your Level tool, and it is a very, very useful thing to have to help you develop within your career, and just to help you see exactly where you are and where you can go. So just a reminder again, it's in support for individuals, Know Your Level individuals. Okay, so that's all from me. I have taken you on a quick tour around the SCQF, helped you understand what all those different levels mean, and most importantly, helped you see how you can work out which level you're actually working at, rather than the level that your qualifications suggest you're working at. Now, I'm going to pass over now to Alison. Alison is going to tell you a little bit about her story, because she has, well, I'm not going to spoil the story. I'm going to let Alison tell it. Thank you so much, Alison.
Thanks very much, Nicola. I want you to have a little look at this slide at the moment and thinking about the title of the session today, Do You Know How Great You Are? I just wanted to ask you to spend a couple of seconds looking at this and really thinking about yourself and everything you've very likely achieved within your life, whether it's school, at work, personally, or otherwise. And I want to ask you the question, do we often stop and ask ourselves how great we are? Realistically, do we? Well, I'm Alison Hall. I'm a specialist lead in education development and the Workforce Directorate in NHS Education for Scotland. And I wanted to come along today to tell you a little bit about my story, which directly relates into recognition of prior learning, which Nicola mentioned earlier. And it's also to let you know that I'm one of those people that Nicola spoke about that managed to go into the third year of a degree programme. So this was really a life-changing decision for me, and it was quite a few years ago in my work journey. But I just want to be clear with you, and for the avoidance of any doubt in this, that I never once stopped to think about how great I was. I mean, why would we? It's just not something that most of us ever tend to do. However, I really actually believe that we've all got this within us, and with some confidence and a bit of support and help, it can come out. But it's very different for each person. You might have been super clever at school and won lots of awards. You may have gained a place into higher education, and you might have done really well in that, and you've got into a good career and progressed and been very successful. But that's not the case for all of us. Most of us actually don't fall into these categories of success, and for a lot of us, school and afterwards can be really challenging. And we can often have a very circuitous route into getting where we are today. What we do now and how we've developed in our personal and professional life, and where we see our career aspirations and next steps taking us. It's not clear for everybody. We don't just wake up one morning and go, aha, I want to be this. It can take a long, long time to get to where you want to be. However, as I've mentioned, we've all got this ability within us. We just do it in different ways, and we need a bit of support and confidence to get us there. For me, starting to think about what could really do with my future came about quite a few years ago. So I'd worked in lots of different roles and had some really good opportunities over the years. I'd also had some quite cruddy jobs and quite cruddy managers I'm just going to share with you, and I know a lot of you will understand that too. It wasn't all rose-tinted glasses, but I had some brilliant folks to work with along the way who really supported me too. But there was always some thoughts in the back of my head, am I doing as well as I could do? Could I try harder? What kind of potential do I have? And if I made a little bit more effort, could I maybe get some qualifications, because I had left school with some O grades and some hires, and I didn't try very hard, I'm just going to be honest. Kind of regretted that as I started to get older and it became a bit more complicated to get jobs and to get the things I wanted to do. So that thought in the back of my head about getting a qualification started to bug me. And you'll know that when you get a monkey on your back and it starts to annoy you, sorry, another monkey discussion following on from the welcome session this week, but when you get that monkey on your back, you really need to do something about it. So I went away and I thought about it. I spoke to my family and friends and things like that, and we spoke about lots of different qualifications and things I would love to get. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it. As I said, I had kind of quite basic qualifications when I left school. And initially I completed a certificate in leadership management because I've always been quite interested in helping people out. However, I was looking for something with a little bit more depth and something that I could maybe take along to an employer and say, look, I've done this and I'd be prepared to try harder and maybe get something else. I was always very interested in businesses and how they worked. So I spoke with colleagues, and I was lucky enough to be working at NES at this time, who had links to colleges and universities. And I told them about the areas of interest that I had and my skills and knowledge, never really thinking that there was anything out there and that maybe I might be lucky to get something, but I'm very unsure about opportunities. One colleague suggested to me this course at Edinburgh Napier University. And she'd just qualified in that and she raved about it. She said it was absolutely fantastic. I liked the sound of it, and they spoke about a blended approach to learning, which was something fairly new at that time. It's very popular now, but something very new at that time. And as I had a full-time job, a 4-year-old son and a husband that worked shifts, I really needed something that was flexible. But I still wanted to be results driven and actually have something tangible, that certificate or something that I could show to people. So I'm not going to lie to you as well, money was a bit tight at the time, having a young child. So it was really important to me to be able to access some additional funding that would help with any course that I chose. So this business management course at Edinburgh Napier University seemed like something which I could really relate to, and it enabled people with my knowledge and skills to apply for the 3rd year of a 4-year degree programme. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you, this was something that I'd never heard of in my life before, and I couldn't quite believe that something like this actually existed and that there was the potential for me to perhaps piggyback onto the 3rd year of a 4-year programme. So I was interested in it, and I phoned up Napier and I managed to get an informal interview with the course tutor, the course leader, who was absolutely fantastic. And we spoke about the roles that I'd done, what I'd worked in over the years, what I was interested in, and some skills that I had. And she was really interested in how I wanted to learn and how passionate I was and where I wanted to go. And that kind of connected with her. And to my absolute surprise, she accepted me right there onto the course. Now, all I'm going to say to you is I walked out the main door at Napier University and I went, yikes, what have I done? Oh my goodness, I wanted a qualification. Well, be careful what you wish for. Here's somebody handing you the opportunity. Now it's over to you and you need to make that kind of effort. So I would tell you that was an easy conversation that night because there was lots of things going on in my head. But I was over the moon and so excited that I'd be able to use all the experience and learning that I had gained in this course and have the potential to get some funding and access the course and work towards a degree, which I did. And I got my degree in 18 months at the age of 40. It wasn't easy. I sat most nights after I put my son to bed and did quite a few hours of studying after a full-time job. I do remember lots of episodes of CSI really late at night because I had to find some kind of way to switch off. So, you know, I still will tell you this experience was and still is, all those years later, one of the top 5 things that I've ever done in my life. It's empowered me to apply for jobs I never thought I'd be able to do. And that's why I'm here today talking to you about recognition of prior learning and how you can potentially use this using these tools that Nicola's spoken to you about. Thinking about how you can gain a qualification. It doesn't need to be a degree. Any qualification you want or you're interested in, there's the potential to do that. So thinking back to the question about how great you are, if you stop and think about having a qualification, the thing that you want and the job that you want and how this will actually make you feel and the confidence that it will give you, I think this helps you grow and it recognises in yourself the skills and abilities that you actually have. So I wanted to say to you about this because it does sound a bit contrite and can be a wee bit cheesy when you say it, but I really mean it most sincerely that if you work hard and put the time and effort in with some supportive people, you can do almost anything that you want. So please know how great you are. To help you along the line here, we've got lots of resources. Aside from Nicola's resources, we've got lots of resources in NES. So if it struck a chord with you and you're interested in any of the information about recognition of prior learning, there's the information here as well that's on our Support Workforce Hub that Victoria is going to post a link to you for. And you can access that. Alongside that, we've got information here about guiding principles, which highlights the 5-step process and talks to you about learning and values and recognises your learning and experience that you've gained in the workplace. It talks about gateways to learning and using all the different approaches that I've mentioned. And it also addresses the diversity of learners' needs, and I think that that is absolutely crucial. We need to think a little bit differently about things and how we approach qualifications. I've also provided here a little QR code with a dinosaur here. So if you're used to using QR codes, if you want to open your phone and your camera and you put it up the screen, it'll open it at this video to you. And we're posting it in here too. So this is a Transforming Lives video and it will talk to you about recognition of prior learning. It's a really good short animation about lifelong learning and RPL. So I just want to say thanks very much for joining Nicola and I today, and we really hope you've enjoyed the session and learned about the SCQF and RPL, and also made you think a little bit about how great you are. So I'm just going to invite Nicola to come back on again.
Thanks, Alison. It's a fantastic story to hear and very inspiring for a lot of people. And thank you everyone for coming. So if you get any questions, I'll let Laura work her way through. I've noticed a few in the chat just while Alison was, so I'll just quickly go through those. If you're looking for a copy of your certificates, if you contact SQA, they will be able to give you, or they should be able to give you, copies of past certificates, and also anything that you've done that was a ScotVec or Scottish Examination Board in the past. They should have all that information. Somebody asked about IOSH and NVQ2. So those are qualifications that will be on the English framework. So if you Google the qualification, find out what level it is on the English framework, and use that one that I showed you, Qualifications Can Cross Boundaries. There's a link to it in the chat. Thank you for putting that in. If you can find out where it is, then you can map it across to the SCQF. The same with City and Guilds. A lot of City and Guilds qualifications were mapped to the SCQF, but a lot of them are not anymore. First thing to do is check your certificate, see what it says. It will have either an SCQF level or just a level. If it's just a level, look on that yellow column and map it across to the SCQF. I think that was most of the easy ones that I picked up. Yvonne, thank you for the link for the beekeeping. Oh, and there was also one from Emily. Emily, you asked about some schools that are maybe not giving the right opportunities to young people because they've made assumptions. We have something called the SCQF School Ambassador Programme. We have over 2/3 of the schools now in Scotland are involved with us, working towards widening the range of qualifications that are available, and that includes academic qualifications and more vocational skills-based qualifications. So local authorities are now working with each other a wee bit more. The schools are working with each other to allow people to have a broader range of things that they can do. So it should be getting better. But unfortunately, as we know, these things take time. So hopefully it will be in time. Hopefully it will be soon.
And just very quickly, there's another question that's gone on about contacting SQA and if you need your candidate number. I think the answer to that is no. Hopefully they should be able to find you. But Nicola, you might know more than me on that.
If you do know it, it'll make the process much easier. But hopefully they'll be able to find you with your school, your name. As long as there weren't many of you with the same name in the one school, you should be all right in the year that you sat your exams.
Just to say thanks very much for joining us today and for all your interactions.